having me today. I'm really excited to kick off the innovation section and talk about something that hopefully will be involved in a lot more of the conversation in several years, which are microarray patches, which we believe could really increase vaccination coverage of Hep B birth dose. So just starting off a little bit of what is PATH. PATH's mission is to improve health equity, and we do that because we believe that health moves humanity forward. So our priorities include improving lives using science and technology. But in order for the innovations to succeed and have the impact that we want, we need to involve end users and the healthcare systems early and often in the product development process. So the scope of our work is vast, and our team at PATH is vast because we work on very large projects and problems. We develop, introduce, and advance affordable vaccines, drugs, devices, and diagnostics. We also create new approaches to strengthen global, national, and local health systems and ensure there are effective health tools to reach the people who need them. Over the past 4 decades, PATH has used this approach to develop a wide variety of different products and introduce them into low and middle income countries. On the slide here, you see just a few examples of our successes in the field of medical devices. Utilizing that same approach, PATH has been engaged in the MAP or microarray patch field over almost 2 decades. The key to our work is through our partnerships. So you can see on this slide the various different partners that PATH has over the course of the development life cycle. You can see we work closely with countries, global organizations such as WHO and Gavi, product developers, and regulators to really ensure that we are advancing this platform as a technology that could be used in low resource settings. I also want to note that PATH does not have any commercial stake in any of these MAP developers. We're really supporting the entire field. So with all of that, what is a MAP? What is a microarray patch, or also known as a microneedle patch? These are patches, think of like a Band-Aid, with hundreds or thousands of tiny microprojections. These microprojections are hundreds of microns long, so they're less than 1 millimeter. There are 2 main types of MAPs that are used to deliver vaccines. The first is a coated MAP. So in this scenario, the microneedle itself is made up of metal, silicone, or some other polymer, and then the vaccine is coated on to that microprojection in a thin film. The other type of MAP is a dissolvable MAP, in which case the microneedle itself is made up of water-soluble polymers and excipients that encase the vaccine in that microneedle structure. When the patch is applied to the skin, it's pressed down so those microprojections pierce the upper layers of the skin. There, the moisture of the skin rehydrates that dried formulation, releasing the vaccine into the body. Then the patch can be removed and discarded. Because the projections only penetrate those top layers of the skin, they're typically perceived as less painful than an injection. Some platforms require an applicator or some sort of external force to ensure that the microneedles penetrate the skin, but some platforms can use just the force of the user's thumb to press on that patch and administer the vaccine. So due to the many attributes of the MAP platform, we believe that the MAPs could increase vaccination coverage over current vaccine presentations. Some of those attributes include that they're very easy to use, they require minimal training, and so can be administered by lesser trained healthcare workers. These products are ready to use, don't require reconstitution, so reduce the potential error. They don't require any other supplies or needles and eliminate the potential for any sharps waste. Because the vaccines are stored in a dried state, they have enhanced thermostability. And these are a single-dose presentation as compared to a multi-dose vial. So some of those benefits are improved acceptability among the recipients, the caregivers, the healthcare workers, and the health system more broadly. These are generally safer to work with. They avoid needle stick injury and can be delivered by lesser trained health workers. Because of that improved thermostability, MAPs could be removed from the cold chain during the last mile, and this would facilitate novel delivery scenarios, such as in campaigns and outreach, or in the scenario we're talking about most today, at-home births. Due to all of these, we believe that MAPs could increase coverage and equity of vaccinations. So this is a snapshot of where MAPs are in their development process. So the only marketed MAPs are cosmetic MAPs, mostly that you can find here in Korea. So I encourage you to grab some before you leave. If you look at the green boxes, which show the vaccine MAPs in development, you'll see that most of them are in the preclinical or phase 1 status. Hep B MAPs are in phase 1. There was an adult trial conducted in Europe a couple of years ago, and we'll hear more from the next speaker about their ongoing hepatitis B vaccine MAP work. Measles rubella vaccine is the most advanced vaccine MAP, having completed a phase 1/2 trial and expecting to enter another phase 2 trial early next year. So with that background, I'll now talk about how global partners are working to advance vaccine MAPs as a platform technology. VIPS, which is the Vaccine Innovation Prioritization Strategy, is a collaboration between Gavi, WHO, UNICEF, the Gates Foundation, and PATH. It was founded to prioritize and then accelerate key vaccine product innovations to better meet country needs and increase equitable vaccine coverage in LMICs. Following a very extensive and transparent prioritization exercise, the VIPS Alliance identified 3 priority vaccine innovations. Those are MAPs, heat-stable and CTC qualified vaccines, and barcodes on primary packaging. So now the Alliance is really focused on supporting these 3 product innovations and accelerating their development so that they can ultimately be used in countries, increasing vaccine coverage, and contributing to pandemic preparedness. One of the main priorities of the VIPS Alliance is measles and rubella MAPs, but I believe that a lot of the learnings and the activities that are going on in the MR MAP space can be applied to the hepatitis B MAP space. So a phase 1/2 study for MR MAPs was conducted in the Gambia that was completed back in 2023. The study demonstrated that MAPs could be used to immunize naive 9-month-old children. The results of this are now published, but just a high level, the data demonstrated that there was high seroprotection and seroconversion rates in both the MAP and the injectable group. Vaccination by a MAP was safe and well tolerated. There weren't any adverse events related to the product, no allergic reactions to the product. And then when we talked to the caregivers of the parents of the toddlers and the infants who were enrolled in the study, we saw that MAPs were very highly acceptable to their caregivers, with most preferring MAPs over the injectable formulation. And so we're looking to build upon this data and momentum in the MAP field. So I wanted to highlight how VIPS partners are really working together to support MAPs in addition to the very extensive technical and manufacturing product development work that's being done by the MAP developers. So at PATH, we're leading a number of technical and clinical analyses for MR MAPs. These include human factors studies where we take prototypes into countries to understand the usability, acceptability, and programmatic fit of the MAPs, as well as thermostability studies, costing analyses, and then we'll be leading the phase 2 trials that will start next year. Gavi has been doing a lot looking at demand modeling to try to understand the market size for MR MAPs, which would eventually inform their funding strategies for MAPs. WHO convened a meeting in India last year where we looked at a framework for the phase 3 clinical trials for MR MAPs and prioritized a list of pre-implementation research questions that would inform policy decisions down the line. So they're currently looking to fund some of those implementation research studies later this year. UNICEF has conducted an initial full vaccine value assessment, and the Gates Foundation provides significant financial and strategic support. In addition to this group of organizations listed on this slide, measles elimination organizations such as the Red Cross have been really instrumental in voicing their support and advocating for the development of MAPs, and this has been really critical to ensure ongoing financial investment in the technology. To reach our ultimate goal of WHO pre-qualification and country introduction, we've put together this plan that weaves together different activities that are required to obtain that goal. This can include clinical research to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of the product, efficiently navigating the regulatory pathway, clarifying the value proposition, and ensuring that we can manufacture this product at quality and at scale. So this plan requires a number of various skill sets and capabilities from across organizations to be able to execute this efficiently. Okay, so now let's talk about how all of this is relevant to hepatitis B birth dose map. So at PATH, with support from Gavi, we're working on a learning agenda for hepatitis B birth dose delivery, especially targeting babies born out of a health facility. The goal of this project is to identify models for increasing Hep B birth dose coverage through novel delivery strategies, which could include assessing alternative presentations, such as a MAP, a pre-filled auto-disable syringe, or single-dose and multi-dose vials. So this work has 3 phases. The first is desk-based research, looking at potential strategies for increasing coverage. Phase 2 is case studies, looking at 4 different countries, doing formative interviews and focus group discussions, as well as a co-creation workshop, which will be later this year. In phase 3, which we'll roll out later, will be pre-implementation research of what we learned in phase 2 to understand what could actually work. So phase 1 of this project uncovered several strategies of increasing vaccination coverage for out-of-facility births, which include either allowing vaccination at home or transporting those babies to the facility. So today I'll share just a preview of the data that was collected in phase 2. National stakeholders, district health managers, and healthcare providers in 2 countries, Ethiopia and the Gambia, were asked to rank MAPs against vials, both single-dose and multi-dose vials, as well as pre-filled syringes for both out-of-facility and in-facility births. And we'll note this is still very preliminary, and we're waiting on data from 2 more countries once we get those IRBs in place. So what did we hear from stakeholders? Our stakeholders in Ethiopia and the Gambia preferred a MAP presentation specifically for those out-of-facility births. However, for births that were happening in the facilities, the vial was the more preferred presentation. As you can see from the various quotes on the screen, the stakeholders were really able to identify what attributes of MAPs made them prefer MAPs and were key to increasing vaccination coverage. Due to the ease of use and lack of sharps waste, MAPs could enable task shifting to allow vaccination by the health worker who was attending the birth. MAPs were also perceived as less painful and would be more acceptable to mothers. However, stakeholders also noted the uncertainty given the novelty of this product. So community engagement, training of users, and necessary policy changes will be critical to ensure success when MAPs are ready to be introduced. So to understand Hep B birth dose's potential impact, a few years ago, PATH, in collaboration with Justice Group at the Burnett Institute in Australia, conducted a cost-effectiveness analysis to compare MAPs to a vial presentation. We used a deterministic compartmental model for perinatal Hep B transmission and progression. We used demographic and epidemiological data from 80 LMICs, as well as other inputs related to the vaccine attributes and costs. we assumed that 3 presentations were available: MAPS, single-dose vials, and multi-dose vials, as well as 2 delivery settings, either at home or in the community, or in the health facility, sorry. And then we looked at the ability of MAPS to increase vaccination coverage, whether that was increasing coverage over the current rates, or at certain percentages, MAPS being able to replace the vial presentations that were already used. So the graph on the right there summarizes the key findings of the model. On the y-axis, you have ICER, and on the x-axis, you have MAP procurement price. So if we start with just the red line there, which is our base case scenario, in this scenario, we assumed that MAPS increased vaccination coverage by 1% in those countries. And you can see that regardless of the procurement price of the MAPS, MAPS were a cost-effective way to expand coverage to a previously unvaccinated births. If you look at some of the other color lines on the slide, these scenarios represent where MAPS are replacing some of the vials for births that were already receiving a vaccination. And so in these scenarios, depending on that replacement rate and depending on the cost of the MAPS could still be a cost-effective method for administering Hep B birth dose vaccine. Therefore, so despite the higher prices of MAPS, this presentation could be a highly cost-effective way to expand vaccination coverage rates. So in conclusion, I hope I've convinced you that due to the unique attributes of MAPS, they could improve coverage and access to vaccination. However, with this new product, there remain several challenges before they can be approved and utilized in countries. This includes development and construction of new manufacturing facilities, development of test methods, establishing regulatory pathways, and having constant communications with regulators to ensure a smooth path to approval. We also need to ensure that the characteristics of these products are suitable for the healthcare systems where we work, and the changes in policies that are needed will be ready to adopt MAPS. For MR MAPS, we've seen that support from measles elimination groups have been critical in their support and pushing funders to invest in MR MAPS. To advance Hep B MAPS, global partners in this community will be critical to have the impact that we ultimately think MAPS could have. If you'd like to engage with PATH or learn more about MAPS, we have a number of resources, both on our website, and we do a newsletter so you can hear what's happening in the MAP community. And feel free to reach out either to me or to our Center of Excellence for MAP Technology. We'd be happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.